Hey everybody, Pete with Optics for Birding here. I've got another review video for you that I'm really excited to show you, and that's because we're reviewing my binoculars today. These are the Swarovski NL Pure, which have been out since about 2020. I think in the summer is when they came out, probably a little bit behind schedule due to the pandemic. But ever since they came out, they have just taken the optics market by storm, and rightly so, because they have some of the best optics, some of the best ergonomics, arguably the best of both. Which, it's hard to really demand any more from a binocular than that. When they fit perfectly in your hands, when they look amazing, it's just hard to put them down. And, whether you think that they're the best in the world, whether you think that they're second place, third place, whatever, I do want to start by saying there is a ton of personal preference involved when you're picking out binoculars. So if you have the opportunity to do so, nothing is better than handling them yourself to see if they're right for you. But today I'm going to get into why I think that they are some of the best on the market, if not number one. So let's get into it. Once again, Swarovski NL Pure. Here is your definitive review. All right, so first things first, let's start with the most painful part of this, which is the pricing right now. And again, this is April of 2024. They are a dollar under 3,500, which is just a staggering price for binoculars. It's other than image stabilized and range finding binoculars and other things that have all these fancy electronics, like the Swarovski Optic AX Visio, this is the priciest pair that we sell at the moment. And whether or not people want to sour that, we have a lot of naysayers on the forums online that say, oh, I would never pay that much for a binocular. You don't need to spend more than $100 or $200 or $500 or $1,000 or whatever have you. I will say there is no shortage of opinion out there, but when it comes to performance, I definitely think that this is ahead of the rest of the pack. Whether or not you can justify spending that much on binoculars comes down to what kind of performance you need and how often you're going to be using them, and of course your own budget. So I do want to give you, however, a sense of why it's so expensive. So number one, let's start with the optics. A lot of you are probably familiar with the term Swarovision, which Swarovski coined in about 2010 or so. That's when they came out with their Swarovision EL binoculars that kind of redefined the whole landscape of the optics market. What do I mean by that? So Swarovision is just kind of an umbrella term that, number one, means that Swarovski is using their absolute best quality glass that they have available to them. They're using their best quality coatings. So you get, number one, what they call their Swaro Top lens coating, that is an anti-reflective coating that's on all the objective lenses, and that's supposed to get as much light through the glass and to your eye as possible. You've got the Swaro Dur coating, which is a scratch-resistant material that keeps the lenses protected even when they're exposed. Thirdly, you have the Swaro Clean coating, which is just makes it a little bit easier to clean the lenses, makes it harder for dust and water to adhere to the lenses, all that sort of stuff that you would counter in the field. So moving on, that all of the coatings that I just mentioned are right at the forefront of the binoculars. Moving back into the prism, you've got Swarovski's Swaro Bright prism coating, which it's just their way of designating their phase correction coating for the binoculars that gets as much light to your eye when it's passing through that prism. And without going into too much detail, it's necessary in all roof prism binoculars like this that lose some light in general when the light goes through the prism. So take my word for it, it's a beautiful image, and that's part of the reason why. Moving back even further toward the eyepiece, part of what I wanted to address today is the field flattening lens that the NL Pures do have, which is part of the Swarovision technology. I wanted to distinguish it from the EL binoculars that are known for the quote-unquote rolling ball effect. Rolling ball is something that's gotten a really bad reputation because a lot of people report, with the old EL Swarovision binoculars, when you pan left and right, if you're following a duck or a deer or what have you, you get this effect in the image called the rolling ball. I think that the term rolling globe is a little bit more descriptive, because if you picture a globe right in front of you, right, and you spin that and you track whatever country or city you're looking at on one edge of the globe, as it comes toward you, it's going to enlarge. As it goes away from you, as it's spinning away, it's going to get smaller and smaller. So what happens when we're talking about binoculars with field flattening lenses is that as you're panning left and right, stuff that's at the edge of your field of view, as it passes through the center, it kind of bulges out and recedes as you pass through it. So the reason I'm geeking out about this is because some people, with the EL binoculars, they say it's so bad that they get nauseous, they get motion sickness, and that's something that has driven people to the competitors in some cases. Field flattening technology is, however, in a lot of Swarovskis, Zeiss, and other binoculars that I won't mention right now, but Swarovski tends to get a lot of heat for it because they were some of the first people to try it. And, a very, vocal minority, let's say, of people that use their binoculars, they report that motion sickness. And now the entire optics market has kind of this opinion that anything with a field flattening lens is going to make you nauseous and motion sick because of that rolling ball effect. What I would say with the NL Pure, and of course, this is really subjective. It could affect you differently. It could be invisible to some other folks. For me personally, like, I do see it in there, and that's not just the case with these. It's the case with a lot of field flattening lenses. But as you pan left and right, you do get a little bit of that effect, but I don't think it's nearly as severe as it is with the EL binoculars. And I think that's one of the things that Swarovski improved upon, at least in my experience. I don't see nearly as much of that rolling ball effect bothering people in the NL Pure as it did in the EL. And, it really comes down to how often are you panning around? How does the binocular interact with your eyes? It's something that's really, really hard to gauge without actually looking at the binoculars yourself. So once again, I do encourage you to go try them in a shop if you can. But if you have to just take my word for it, if you're in a location that doesn't have any access to optics, then what I would say is, if you have noticed it on the EL before, you'll probably notice it on the NL Pure as well, just not quite as severely. So that's a little bit of a detour into one, pain point on some of these binoculars with the field flattening lens that I just wanted to address, because a lot of people have questions about that. A lot of people assume that they can't use binoculars that have that, and I just want to dispel that a little bit. The vast, vast majority of people that try them in our store, they're like, okay, yeah, if I really, really look for that rolling ball effect, I can see it. However, it's not going to bother me when I'm looking at birds and I'm trying to focus on them, and I'm not like intentionally looking at the periphery of my field of view and seeing it bulge out. At any rate, let's move on. Speaking of the field of view and things at the side and things in the middle, blah, 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 one of the things that makes the NL Pure so amazing is the field of view. I've got the 10x42 model in front of me here, and this 10x42 has a field of view of 399 feet at 1,000 yards, which is the exact same as the EL 8.5x42. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. The 10x42 NL Pure has the same field of view as the EL 8.5x42, which, usually when you go down in magnification, you expect to widen your field of view a little bit. That's one reason people choose lower power binoculars, is so they can see more. But one of the reasons that the NL Pure is as expensive as it is because you kind of get the best of both worlds. So with the 10x42 having the same kind of field of view as you're used to with a lot of the 8 power or 8.5 power binoculars, it really, I just think, takes the experience to another level, because you get so much more area that you're covering. You can keep track of moving birds more. You can spot more, deer in the distance if that's what you're looking for, that kind of thing. And, when these came out in 2020, one thing that Swarovski said is that the edges are quote unquote indiscernible. That's the only thing that I would say I can't really materialize when I look at these myself, because I do see the edges of the field of view, albeit they're further out on the sides than they are with most binoculars. But that's the only thing I would push back on. A lot of people ask us about that, like, what do they mean by indiscernible edges? I don't know either. I think that they do have an edge. You can only make the field of view so wide, and even though this is a really nice wide field of view that lets you capture a lot, you can still see the black edges at the sides. So a lot of people, when they're looking to invest this kind of money in a binocular, they want to know how it compares to the rest of the pack when it comes to the image quality. And what I would say is it really, really depends on your eyes. When you're buying cameras, when you're buying, TVs or a lot of other things that produce an image, your eye is a lot less of a part of the equation than it is with binoculars. The same lens with the same camera taking a picture of the same thing is always going to look the exact same when you print it out or look at it on a computer or what have you. But when two different people are using the same binocular in the same lighting conditions, looking at the exact same thing, you can see things that are a little bit different because of the way that the binoculars interact with your eye, the way the light passes through your eye lenses versus the next person. So I'm a little bit reluctant to tell you, like, oh, the reds and the greens are a little bit more vivid in this one versus the next. But I will say that a lot of people do come to that conclusion, and I come to that myself too. I don't want to prescribe it as like a catch-all, but one thing I would say is that I do love how color neutral these are. you don't get a lot of, at least, again, for me, and for a lot of our customers, you don't get a lot of reds or greens or blues popping out more than they should. I think that this really gives you a natural image of the real world. It's just really, really, really sharp and crystal clear, and it doesn't, artificially make the colors more vivid than they are in real life. So with the NL Pure, I think they did a really good job of coating the lenses so that they give you a nice, accurate representation of the colors. On top of that, there's nothing wrong that I can say with the image quality in this. Like, the glass quality is just superb. It's probably the clearest binocular that I've ever looked through. Again, not necessarily going to be the clearest for you, but when it comes to just looking at small details at long distances, especially over longer periods of time, I think that the NL Pure is just a head above the rest, because it gives you such clear definition of those little details that you wouldn't get with other binoculars. And the longer that you're out in the field, the worse the lighting conditions are, the more those little tiny details are going to matter. Unfortunately, that is one of the things that drives up the price quite a bit, is the glass quality and the coating quality. But if you're somebody that's birding all the time, if you're out in the early morning, late evening, and you're looking for really subtle details on different species, or you're trying to spot deer or elk at a really long distance in horrible lighting conditions, and I'm talking crack of dawn or when the sun's going down, that's where I think that these top-end binoculars like this really shine. The NL Pure has 91% light transmission. If you know how to make one with 100% light transmission, let me know. But 91 is about as high as we can get right now. There are some with 92 or 95% that I won't get into right now, but 91% is still amazing. And you can definitely see a lot more with these in low light conditions than you'll be able to see with your naked eye. And if you do have the opportunity to try these in low light, I mean, it really is just a fascinating experience to see things in such detail with what you would think is such poor lighting, and all of a sudden you hold these up to your eyes and it looks like you're watching a movie. So that, as far as the image quality goes, there are some other things that I could address that I think are much more subjective. So I'm going to leave those on the table and just try to keep it to the things that I think apply to an objective review. So I think, by and large, I've covered a lot of the optics stuff that is important to most folks. When you're looking at spec sheets side by side, it's a little bit hard to gauge why binoculars can get so expensive. But what I wanted to just highlight here is that they're using the absolute best quality lens coatings and glass and prism material and field flattening lenses that they have at their disposal. And it really does give you an unparalleled viewing experience, in my opinion. Some more nitty-gritty stuff is that, some people ask us about the close focusing distance. The NL Pures are about 6.5 feet, which is not the best we've ever seen, but it's certainly, plenty of close focus for somebody that wants to do insect viewing, or, take them to a museum to look at brushstrokes, that kind of thing. 6.5 feet is really plenty for birding, unless you get a hummingbird right in your face. And then at that point, how badly do you really need the binoculars? It's kind of up to the individual. Once again, I did mention that the field of view is 399 feet at 1,000 yards, which, as far as I'm aware, unless somebody wants to correct me, is the widest field of view that we have on a 10x42 at the moment. I think that should give everybody a sense of, what's going on under the hood with these binoculars in terms of the optics. Again, I do encourage you to try them in person if you can, because that'll give you a sense of what the view really looks like, particularly in low light conditions when you're looking at really detailed things that are far away. That's where these top-end binoculars are going to shine. Other kind of minor details is that, what some people appreciate is that this does have a 6.5 foot close focus. There are plenty of people that would never need that. If you're a deer hunter, obviously, if you've got a deer within 6.5 feet of you, or a bear, you probably got a bigger problem on your hands than how close your binoculars can focus. But for a lot of people that are doing insect viewing, butterfly viewing, dragonflies, or even hummingbirds in some cases, and you want to get that really up close view, if you've got like a hummingbird feeder outside your window that's only 6 feet away or 7 feet away, in some cases that 6.5 foot close focus can really come in handy. Right, so now that we've covered basically everything that there is to cover as far as the image quality goes, let's talk about the ergonomics. So first thing that people notice usually when they look at these is the hourglass figure. I think we've come to a point where people are pretty picky about their binoculars, and rightly so. When you're spending this kind of money, I think that you should have every little feature dialed in as much as possible, and I do think that the NL Pure exemplifies that pretty well. The hourglass figure is not just to make the binoculars look attractive, believe me, even though they do. It's really to give you a tool that you can hold steady comfortably for a long period of time while you're viewing. And you know, one of my mottos has always been to people that have talked to me before on the phone, some of you watching this, is like, the best binoculars are the ones that you take with you. That's motto number one, but probably motto number two that I've been telling people more and more is the way that you want to think about your binoculars is as an extension of your eyes and an extension of your hands. So the binoculars that you focus on nature and whatever's going on at the other end of the binoculars and not the binoculars themselves, that's what you really want to gravitate toward. And you know, having a binocular with that little neck down waist, if you will, in the middle, it gives you something that you can hold really comfortably for a long period of time without getting strained. And the more you can accomplish that, the less you're going to be worried about holding the binocular properly, you know, shifting your hands around to get rid of that ache that you're having, you know, especially for folks that are using them for a long period of time. You want to make sure that you have something that's going to be comfortable to hold. So my understanding is that what Swarovski did when they were making these is, as opposed to a traditional binocular design, which has a cylinder, they consulted ski glove manufacturers to find the most relaxed position of a human hand, and they built the binoculars around that. So the most relaxed position for a human hand obviously is not going to be a fist. It's not going to be totally splayed out like that. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, and that's kind of how Swarovski designed these. You know, the ski glove manufacturers obviously are supposed to know where the most relaxed position is, and that's what advice they gave Swarovski when building the NL Pure. So it's really comfortable to hold, even with one hand. You know, if you have your thumb wrapped around here, we have a lot of binoculars that have these weird like thumb grips on the inside that I'm not a huge fan of. Some people like them, but you know, to each their own. On the NL Pure, on the other hand, I think that really gives you a lot of flexibility as far as how to hold the binocular goes. And you know, if you're, for example, if you've got your phone in one hand and you've got a checklist going on all the birds that you're seeing, or you know, you get a call or whatever, it's a lot easier to hold these with one hand than it is with other binoculars because you have that little pinch down section in the middle. Some people might prefer like the open bridge design, which is what the EL binoculars have. Again, to each their own, but the vast majority of the customers that come into the store and they try them side by side, this is way more comfortable to hold. And you know, that's a good segue into the next part of the binocular, which is the focusing mechanism. That natural grip puts your index finger on the focus wheel super easily. You don't have to skew your finger at all. And again, don't worry, I know I'm being picky, but for something that you're going to be using all the time like binoculars, it's nice to have a focus wheel that's located in a position that's really easy to access, so you don't have to skew your fingers. Number two, which is a little bit harder to illustrate, is that the focus wheel is probably the smoothest that I've ever used. You can turn it with, you know, very little effort, and you can get it to move responsively, quickly, so that you can transition between those near and far distances really rapidly. The focus wheel is the thing that you're going to be touching all the time when you're using the binoculars, and particularly for a bird watching setting, you're going to be going back and forth between, you know, 10 feet, 50 feet, and 100 feet all the time. So you never want that focus wheel to get in your way. Like I said, the binocular should be an extension of your hands. And the more that you can keep focused on the bird that you're looking at, and the less you have to worry about your focus wheel, you know, stiffening up on you and getting in the way and being hard to turn, the better. So that is something that a lot of the cheaper binoculars that we carry just don't do a good job of. You know, a lot of people, they end up fighting their focus wheel constantly to get things in focus. And the NL Pure, I just think, is kind of the gold standard as far as that goes, because it's located in a position that's really easy to use and access. It's smooth, and on top of that, like, it's big enough, even if you have big gloves on, you'll be able to turn that thing really easily. So that is something that not everybody needs to be perfect, but again, you know, I'm just trying to explain why the NL Pure is a little bit of a class above the rest, is that focusing mechanism. So moving on to another little gizmo that is not actually part of the binoculars, which is the forehead rest. I do want to stress that you'll see a lot of images of the binoculars with these two things connected to each other. Unfortunately, this does not come with it right now. And again, April of 2024, when I'm filming this, this retails for about $169. And you know, for some folks, it's not really necessary. Every other binocular that we've used in the past has not had a forehead rest, and people have been able to get by just fine. On the other hand, there's, you know, unless you have your binoculars on a tripod, there's always going to be some of that little wobble action going on, even if you have the binoculars cemented in your eye sockets like this. So To control that wobble even more, Swarovski made the forehead rest so that you can roll it out, put it against your forehead, and give you that extra stability that you might need. And I can tell you firsthand, using this myself, even though I don't, I've been using 10x42 binoculars my whole life, and it's always what I've gravitated toward, despite any little bit of shake that I have. I have never found in any binocular that the shake is so severe that I have to go down to an 8 power or a 6 power or whatever. But wild horses could not tear this thing off of my binoculars now, because I realize how much more of a difference it makes when you're looking at really detailed objects at a long distance. Having that extra stability just makes you enjoy the experience more. It keeps those little details from bobbing up and down, and your brain is, you're taking a load off of your brain essentially, because the image is not bobbing up and down, and your brain can process what's going on much more easily. So again, some people don't love having that little piece against their forehead, especially on a hot day. If you're sweating, that can be a pain point for some people, but I really do think that it's worth the extra cost, and it really doesn't add any weight to the binoculars. All it does for me is it keeps that image from bobbing up and down. So on top of that, I mentioned earlier, the grip being helpful for if you have your phone out and you're doing a checklist, that kind of thing on eBird. That forehead rest, I think, takes that a step further, because not only now do you have a really solid grip on the binoculars because of the shape, but you've got that extra point of contact on your forehead to keep everything cemented and keep it from moving left and right and up and down. So I usually film these videos without my glasses because they have a lot of glare, but I'm going to put them on now to demonstrate this. So actually, before I do that, I will give a shout out to all the people that don't use binoculars with glasses, because you folks are lucky. You get the eye cups in your eye sockets. There's a lot of contact around the rim so that the binoculars don't bob up and down as much. But for us folks that are blind as a bat at distance, I'm very nearsighted, and I really do need my glasses to see. If you're in the same boat as me, I do encourage you to use your binoculars with your glasses so that you have the ability to spot stuff at a distance without needing your binoculars. So again, with the glasses on, you're going to have the eye cups twisted down. That forehead rest, actually, before I show you that, typically, like if you have the eye cups resting on your glasses, there's a lot of room for them to just kind of bob around and not really stay in place. So I've found that the forehead rest, especially as an eyeglass wearer, makes a world of difference, because you can just leave it there, and even if the eye cups aren't touching anything, you have a lot of stability there. So another bit of advice that we usually give people is it's not always wise to share binoculars, but obviously this is a pretty expensive piece of equipment, and I can understand if you want to get just one to share between the two of you, as much as I don't recommend that. And for people that are handing off binoculars here and there, that forehead rest, I think, makes it even easier to share, because you've got that point of contact. You don't have to, if you've got one person wearing glasses and the other one not, it's a lot easier to just leave that forehead rest out, and then, say I'm the person not wearing glasses and I'm getting them from somebody that does wear glasses. I can leave the eye cups down, put the forehead rest on there, and I'm still laser focused on the image, even though the eye cups are not where they should be for somebody who's not wearing glasses. So a lot of people, they try it in the store. It's not for them. That's totally fine. But I would, encourage you to try it if you're considering the NL Pure, because I think it really does make a world of difference. I always say buy the binocular for the binocular, not for the accessories. But I think with Swarovski, it's worth talking about them a little bit. So this is not unique to the NL Pure. This is something that they came out with, I believe, in 2015 with their EL Swarovision Pro binoculars. These have the same Field Pro accessories that those ELs have. And what do I mean by that? Well, number one, you've got the little lock and pin system that makes it a lot easier to switch between a strap and a harness, or attach a third-party harness, that kind of thing. So that is Swarovski's proprietary system for attaching their strap, and it's definitely a lot quicker than, undoing a strap, looping it through the binoculars and connecting it, and then, God forbid you want to switch from that to a harness, you're back in the same boat. It just takes forever. So I really like that little feature. Secondly, these objective covers are probably the best in the business, in my opinion, because they are not a pain to get to actually stick in the binocular. We have some other binoculars that we carry where it's really a pain to get the objective covers to actually stick inside. But with the Swarovski ones, they just go in and they fit like a glove. There's no problem there. On top of that, they're weighted enough so that when you dangle them down, the wind is not going to make them blow up into the image and distract you, and all of a sudden you've got these shadows going on. They, even in windy conditions, they do stay attached. But if you hate that, no problem. You just grab it, pull it right off, and you can leave your objective covers in the car. And I didn't picture it here, but they have a little black spacer ring if you want to attach that in this place so that you have a nice full ring right there. So I hope that I've answered all your questions. I know that there are probably hours and hours and hours of content that I can make about just these binoculars. I could write a book about them because I love them so much, but you know, I'm trying to be objective here and give you guys a sense of why they have such a good reputation, why they cost so much, what the intricate little bits of technology are inside that are going on, and just to give you a sense of whether or not they'd be right for you. So if you don't feel like your questions have been answered in this video, I always love to chat with you guys. Please feel free to reach out to us on social media if that's how you're watching this. You can also get a hold of us at 877-674-2473. And of course, there's no shortage of information on our website, opticsforbirding.com. Once again, please reach out to us if you feel like it. Thanks so much for watching, and this has been another review video from Optics for Birding. See you next time.